Hi, everybody. David Noor. I want to welcome you to episode 4 of the Inner Circle live stream podcast. I'm delighted you're here. We're live on LinkedIn, YouTube, X, both my personal channels, but also the Avneer, official Avneer channels. Delighted you're here. Welcome. Appreciate the interest in me, my work, our topic, our AI system of agents we're building in Avneer. If you're new to this concept, this idea, I'm the author of 12 books, most recently Relationship Economics. Before that, I wrote Curve Benders. Before that, I wrote Co-Create. And books typically take me about 4 years for the ideas to percolate. And at some point, you've read enough, you've researched enough, you've talked enough, consulted, coached, and now integrated into the platform enough that you feel like you have something to say. And I've been thinking about this idea of an inner circle probably for about a dozen or so years. And I've always believed it's very difficult to understand your journey from now to next if you don't get crystal clear on defining what that next is. So I'm big on defining, definition, breaking it down. If you haven't had a chance, I would encourage you go back and listen to the previous episode, because in episode 1, I started by defining what an inner circle is. And I've got a definition in front of me that might be really useful to you. I describe an inner circle as a curated group of high-value relationships that inspire, challenge, elevate, and amplify your personal and professional growth through mutual trust, measurable collaboration, and shared success. Again, I will put this definition also in the chat, and I would encourage you to keep that in mind as we talk about these different perspectives, different lenses, different stepping stones to get there. So episode 1, you're welcome to go back and listen. I spent a lot of time on clearly defining. I broke each of those down extensively. I would encourage you to go back and listen how I defined inner circle. Episode 2, I gave you attributes, 10 specific attributes on what constitutes an inner circle. Like, what are you looking for? Almost like a personal scorecard on how to think about it. In the previous episode, episode 3, I talked about 10 steps to creating, nurturing, and sustaining an inner circle. This is not a George Foreman grill of set it and forget it. You have to be intentional about developing this inner circle, because if they're going to fuel, if they're going to accelerate your personal and professional growth, it needs to be, and again, a curated group of high-valued relationships. By definition means it takes nurturing and feeding and care. And I equate plants. I have plants here in my home office, and if you don't take care of them for a week, you start to see signs of decay. If you overwater them, you're literally are gonna kill them because you're rotting the roots. So right amount of that nurturing and sustainability of that relationship becomes critical. So in this episode, I really want to talk about best practices in becoming a member of someone's inner circle. You describe inner circle, and most people are excited. Yep, sounds great. I'm in. How do I join? Where do I go? What do I buy a ticket? Is there an app for that? We're building one, but they're excited about joining, and I don't believe, like most of my experiences with relationships, most professionals don't realize the incredibly difficult work necessary to become world-class in how they build relationships. Similarly, I don't believe most people realize the incredibly difficult work necessary to be considered, to create awareness, to create that market gravity or market pull, to become part of someone's inner circle. So in this episode, I want you to really think about, and I've been thinking about the sports analogy. If you think of team sports, most coaches, most GMs, if you get into upper levels, are always thinking, who is the best team I can put on the field? in different positions, and they're looking for individual attributes at an individual, and relationships are never between buildings or logos. They're always between individuals. So at an individual level, how do I put, what do they have the right attributes for me to put the best possible position players on that field or on that ice or on that court? Equally valuable is going to be the inner working, the inner connectivity, the inner relationship, the inner section of their individual skills, knowledge, and behaviors. Because a team with a rock star that acts like a lone wolf isn't going to succeed nearly as effectively as a team that plays really well together. So some of you may know I grew up in the Middle East, big soccer fan, and Lionel Messi, right? Arguably one of the best players in the world. Argentina, for several World Cups, heavily depended on his individual skills. The last one they won was because they surrounded him with others who could really build up opportunities, really play multifaceted games, so on and so forth. So when we talk about best practices to become a member of someone else's inner circle, it isn't just about your individual skills. You also need to think about the interoperability of who else is in that room, who else is in that circle. How do you leverage the collective skills, knowledge, experiences, behaviors to get to a different level? And by the way, again, if you listen to previous episodes in relationship economics, over 2 decades, I've written extensively about this idea of your value pyramid. These are your most valuable relationships. These are your most critical, most impactful. There you go. Your value pyramid is different levels of relationship depth and relevance you build. And this is your inner circle is a subset of that group. It really comes to from the side of that value pyramid is your inner circle. So let me go through these 5 best practices. I'm going to list them, and then we'll dive into each of them in a little bit more detail. By the way, we take these live streams and we repurpose them as a podcast. So wherever you consume podcasts, within the next few days, we'll post this episode up there as well. I would also encourage you, if you haven't had a chance to join, forum.avneer.com is our private online community. We've got an inner circle group where we'll post show notes and transcripts and resources and anything else that I share, not in this one, but as well as every other episode. I have some guests lined up, that executives that are going to join us, some of our advisory board members, other relationships that I have in the market, to describe their lens, their perspective. I certainly don't have all the answers on this, and I want others to likewise jump in when I describe some of these things. So here we go. The 5 best practices in becoming a member of someone else's inner circle. Number 1, consistent validation of trust. I've brought this up before. Trust as a critical facet of relationships cannot just be talked about. It has to be felt. It has to be experienced. We have to go through a scenario where I can feel that I can trust you. I can feel the confidential information that you get access to is going to remain that way, that you can practice discretion. I'm amazed of how often the good Lord has given all of us judgment, and yet how few times you actually see how few people exercise it. So being reliable, committing to less, but delivering on those commitments, following through, which is a process, not a follow up on those commitments, prioritizing integrity, and being forthright in every interaction. I think I've mentioned faith is pretty important to us, and one of my previous pastors always said, if there's a gap between who you are and who you pretend to be, the more exhausting life becomes. So the more in every interaction, you lead with integrity, you lead with trust. You don't wear it on your sleeve. You can't just, and I hate it when people say trust me. What do you mean? The other times I shouldn't, or the other times you're not trustworthy? So the more the reliability, I cannot emphasize how critical that is. I have to be able to count on you to get things done. One of my favorite phrases, as long as I can remember, is somebody else saying, I've got it. I've got this. To me, that means he or she is going to take it, run with it. It's going to get done. I don't have to worry about it. People who own things, own initiatives, own key action items, own difficult tasks, complex, problems they're trying to solve, proactively communicating a sequence. People who own things become invaluable in earning that trust. And as consistently as they execute on those commitments, they deliver on those commitments, now they start to build, I actually believe in a reliability index. Think about it a second. Reliability is not just, and consistency is not just somebody doing it once, is in our last 5 interactions, how often have you delivered on the commitments that you've made? So if it's 5 out of 5, you're a rock star, you're top of my list, you're my go-to person. If it's 1 out of 5, you know what that sounds like. The one time I asked Joe for something, he did it, but the last 3, 4 interactions, he has been unbelievably unreliable. And in that scenario, you've done more to dilute your credibility, dilute the trust than you'll ever do to try to gain it. So number 1, building trust through that consistency is critical, and it cannot be talked about. It has to be demonstrated. It has to be demonstrated through sensitive information and mutual goals and aspirations. And think about it a second. If people are uncomfortable with you, they're probably not going to share their aspirations. They're not going to tell you that I don't really, I'm not excited about this job I'm in. I'm going to go try to do something else. I'm tired of being an operator full-time, 80 hours a week. I want to go do something else. I have this health issue and I need to step away from this role and go do something else. I'm here to solve a problem. As soon as I do that, I'm going to go do something else. Have you noticed I'm going to go do something else is one of the ones I bring up often? Because most of us know in our gut that the situation we're in is probably not ideal. Whatever I'm doing, and there's no perfect job, but I've coached enough executives to know in their gut, they know early on there's some fleas on this dog, or there's some yellow flags, if not red flags. I'm going to take it anyway because I believe through brute force, I can change it. And they soon realize they run into this brick wall of corporate inertia. And they do their best and they try to work it out. But they know in their heart that this isn't the right place for me. If they share that with you, when they share that with you, they're looking for that unquestionable integrity and trust. And the only way you're going to get that is if you've demonstrated consistently over time that you can be trusted. So I really, and if you search the term trust, you'll find millions of references to it. I want you to, and this content I already know, and I don't need to hear myself talk, is for you to really internalize what has to happen for others to experience that reliable, consistent trust in interacting with you. Because a lot of what I'm going to talk about, a lot of inner circle is about, sure, some of it is acquisition of a new skill. Some of it is the knowledge that comes from the application of that skill. But a lot of it is going to be a change in your behavior. And behavior is never a switch. It's always a dial. So what will you need to dial up? What do you need to dial back? But when you demonstrate trust through consistency and how you show up, you're building a solid foundation. And that's exactly how you need to think about it. There's no way on God's green earth you're going to get invited to join anybody's inner circle if they haven't experienced that with you over some period of time. And this is something young people have a really hard time understanding, that this doesn't happen overnight. It's not one project or one initiative, sometimes one job or one company. I need to see you deliver that consistency over some period of time. We need that both quality interactions and a critical mass of interactions for me to feel that trust. It does not happen overnight. And in the Matrix movie vernacular, there is no blue or red pill. So I want you to think of empathy, understanding where I come from, plus credibility. You know more about your world than anybody else I know, multiplied by consistency, how you show up, not just once in a while, but every time we interact over time. That is my definition for trust. And when you do that, it is felt. So number one, build trust, not as a sprint, but as a lifelong marathon, as the foundation. And you do that through consistency. Number two, offer value without expectations. So you may have heard me say this before. I've written about it again extensively in relationship economics. I'm a big believer of reciprocate first. Invest in others. Demonstrate a vested interest in their success. So when you identify ways to help them achieve their goals, solve their biggest challenges, commit to doing fewer things, but come through in supporting their efforts, you may not be able to do it for them. Most often, we can't do it for them. But if you can bolster them, if you can help, if you can make introductions, if you can invest in their success, what you're doing is you're offering value. And that's incumbent upon them to take it. But don't offer value with any strings attached. Help without any strings attached. These are incredibly valuable relationships that you want to see succeed. When I say demonstrate a vested interest in their success, offer insights, offer resources, make introductions that are not blind, but they're aligned with their needs. So I'm a huge believer of, you can't really be an asset. You can't really add value to a relationship if you don't understand their most strategic priorities. So I'm a huge believer of, hey, help me understand what are your big boulders. And beginning of the year, by the way, is fantastic time because of the new year, but you can do this anytime. Tell me what your strategic priorities are over the next 6 months. Tell me, if I wanted to help, how could I be the biggest asset? How could I most help you over the next 6 months? The reason I like that 6 to 12, no more than about 18 months, is it's short-term enough that you can make an impact with an eye on the horizon, with an eye on the long-term viability. But if you're not asking your relationships, how can I be an asset to you? How can I help you? How can I support you? How can I bolster your success? You're going to try to toss things over the wall, or you're going to try to help, and it's just not going to land because you didn't take the time to understand what I need. And by the way, most of your relationships know what they want, not what they need. The difference is you asking better questions. The difference is you asking almost like a consultative approach. That's interesting. And I want you to amplify your curiosity. So when engaging others, we're talking about, if you just joined us, we're talking about 5 best practices in becoming a member of someone else's inner circle. And as a reminder, episode 1, I defined inner circle and I put it in the notes as a curated group of high-valued relationships that inspire, challenge, elevate, and amplify your personal and professional growth through mutual trust, measurable collaboration, outcome-based collaboration, and shared success. So number 1, in this episode, I talked about 5 best practices. You got to build trust through consistency. You have to be reliable. I have to count on your ability to get things done. Help me get things done. Number two, offer value without expectations. When you offer insights, when you offer resources, when you make introductions, what I'm begging you to do is don't do those blindly. Ask the relationship, what are your biggest priorities? What are your biggest boulders? What are your biggest obstacles? What are the biggest challenges you're trying to solve? And then become an enabler of that. And when they solve that one, let's look at the next set of challenges, opportunities. By the way, I often bring up challenges first, not because I think everybody's damaged, but I believe people will do more to solve pains and problems than they will to create gains or upside. So if you help someone overcome a challenge, if you help them overcome an obstacle, oh my God, I couldn't have done that without you. That's one of my favorite responses. Thank you. I'm grateful. I couldn't have reached that person, reached that milestone, reached that next destination without you, without your help. That's when you start to separate yourself from everybody else they know to who can I count on? Who is reliable? Who's trustworthy? Who offers value without being nudged or poked? And by the way, most of us don't have the bandwidth or the inclination to follow up and follow up. So please, for the love of God, don't make me ask you something 15 times before it gets done. Do you see the veins popping in my neck? Ask me how I know. Good people, good intentions, you have to follow up and follow up and follow up, which none of us have the bandwidth to do. I told our kids were growing up, they'll attest to this. I said, I don't ever want to ask you to do something more than once. Have you seen the parents who, don't make me ask you for the 748th time? And I've always believed if you surround yourself with adults, you don't have to be in the babysitting business. If you surround yourself with peers, you don't have to work on projects. Number three, foster authentic connections. In our hyper-connected social media world, we're propagating the myth of quantity over quality. Touches and thumbs up versus meaningful, insightful interactions and engagement. And so when you foster authentic connections, you're genuine, you're transparent about your intentions and about your value. I love coffee meetings or discussions where at some point it comes up, what are you trying to do? These things. What are your priorities? These things. Of what you've mentioned, I believe I can help you with this too. I can't do anything with these two, but I believe I can introduce you to others that can help you with the two that I can't. Here's what I'm willing to do. Here's what I'm not willing to do. Here's what I'm capable of doing. Here's what I can't. I cannot get you an invitation to the White House. Sorry. Maybe the governor's mansion. So being authentic, being genuine, being transparent about what you can and what you're willing and what you cannot or you're unwilling. That is too much of an ask. That is too heavy of a lift. Whatever it is, be transparent up front. So people don't spend a whole lot of cycles perceiving, believing, expecting, well, Sam is in New York. Sam's been in New York a whole bunch of years. Sam's plugged into the technology scene in New York. Surely Sam can walk me into some of these other things. Maybe, maybe not, but you're making that assumption and you have no idea of Sam's depth of his relationships, health of his relationships, or the relevance of his relationships. Does he have aligned values with you? Is he calling on the same type of prospects and customers that you may need? Does he solve the kinds of problems you need help with? So we all make a whole bunch of assumptions with our relationships without ever recalibrating. Are we in the same conversation? Are we talking about the same outcomes? Are we at the, here's what I need. Here's kind of what I could use your help with. And it's awesome when the other person says, I can help you with these two, These two I can't, or I'm not willing to, but I know others. I'm willing to help you with others that can help you solve those challenges and opportunities. So focusing on the long-term relationship based on mutual respect and a shared purpose. Mutual respect. I'm going to respect your time. I'm going to respect your bandwidth. Again, having done a lot of executive coaching, a lot of my clients are busy. They're busy. And last thing I want to do is add to their plates. I'm here as a sounding board. I'm here as a support mechanism. So I don't demand anything. I'm here to support you. I was on a call 10 o'clock last night with an executive who needed for us to talk. So that long-term relationship, I'm still working with somebody I coached 15 years ago. Somebody I went to grad school with 20 years ago is an investor in our company and on my advisory board. So think about, focus on building that long-term relationship based on mutual respect, based on shared purpose. Here's where we're going. Here's how we're going to get there together. Here's where you're going that I believe in. By the way, if you don't believe in the mission, if you don't believe in the direction, if you don't believe in where we're going, how are you really authentically gonna provide value? You're not. You're gonna fake it and it's gonna be transactional, and most people will see right through that. So do all of us a favor and don't. We're so afraid of hurting other people's feelings that we won't say, that isn't my cup of tea. I'm not willing to. I cannot commit to that. Is there another way? Or here's how else I could help, but I'm not willing. I cannot do that. I think we need more of those conversations versus, well, call me next month and 6 months from now and let's discuss it. No, thank you. I'd rather surround myself with 5 or 10 people that I can count on and I can rely on, and they're going to deliver and they're going to commit and they're all in, versus 100 people that want to be nice. If you just joined us, talking about the 5 best practices to becoming a member of someone's inner circle. 1, build unquestionable trust through consistency. 2, offer value, material value, exponential value without expectations. 3, foster authentic connections, authenticity, real, genuine. 4, proactively, intently, strategically invest in the relationship. You have to show up. Showing up is half the battle, right? But when you dedicate quality time, when you commit real effort, not half-baked, not kind of, not maybe, real effort to nurture, to sustain, regular, that's why touch cadence we've built into the Avenir platform, meaningful interactions, the quality. I'd rather meet with you for a quality 1 hour a month than touch base every few days where I feel like we're getting nothing done. I'd rather meet with you once a month for 6 months and meaningfully move this relationship forward than touch base, then stay in touch, because that doesn't add any value. So I'm a huge believer of quality time, intentional, proactive effort to nurture, to sustain, to maintain the regular, meaningful interactions. Top of mind, you reinforce some of that brand promise. Remember, difference between brand promise and brand equity are experiences. We buy a brand because of a perception. When it delivers its quality, oh my gosh, it kept me warm in that last storm. It kept me dry in the last rainstorm. This is great quality. I'm willing to then spend a premium on that product. Or it was an exceptional experience. They went above and beyond. I'm willing to invest in that experience. And when we don't, when there's a gap, regardless of your good-looking hotel property or your global brand or your whatever. If I buy this water bottle that's branded and it leaks, I'm not buying another one, and I'm going to throw this out. Same thing with our relationships. My perception of you is up here. And the last several interactions you've delivered here. The gap is where we have a problem. By now, you've heard of this neurism, right? Relationships go bad with misaligned expectations. So when you intentionally, proactively invest in the relationship, the other side feels it. And relationships have to be felt, not just talked about. It also means that investment, believe it or not, a lot of times includes listening louder. I can't take credit for this. I think it came from a marriage counselor and Wendy and I will celebrate 29 years this year. But I heard this from the context of a marriage. When you speak to a spouse, and particularly us men, we want to fix things, right? So the marriage counseling advice is always ask, do you want to be heard? Do you want a hug? Or do you want help? I believe the same things are relevant in our professional relationships. Do you want to be heard? Do you want me to just listen to whatever your challenge is, whatever your obstacle is, and be a sounding board? Do you want a hug, which is love, support? I'm here for you. I hear you, right? Here's some questions for you to think about. Or do you want help? Do you want me to help you solve this problem? Do you want my help in an introduction or some other way of resolving whatever the challenge is? But it starts with you listening louder. You've heard me talk about this. Listen louder for not just what's being said, what's not being said. You walk into a meeting and they're sitting like this. What do you think is you walking into? This is an open arm, come give me a hug in a non-creepy way. This is, I am suspect of what you're sharing at best. So listen louder to not just what's being said, but what's not being said. Number one. Number two, go back and listen to my definition of, let's revisit my definition of trust. Empathy plus credibility multiplied by consistency over time. If you don't understand where I'm coming from, if you don't understand where I'm struggling with, if you don't ask better questions to better understand my situation, there's very little in your credibility that can help, because you're thinking of me as a transaction versus let me diagnose before I prescribe. One of the biggest reasons cold outreach fails spectacularly is because most people who reach out, let me tell you how great we are. They don't care. And you don't know anything about me. You've done zero homework. So when you demonstrate, you listen louder, you demonstrate empathy, you engage in a way that strengthens the connection. What you're doing is you're demonstrating an investment in the relationship. So strengthening the connection. The part of the world I come from is never about a meal. It's always about the connection at that meal. We all have to eat. Whether it's breakfast, lunch, dinner, drinks, coffee, that connection. So put this damn thing away. Not even upside down on the table. Put it away. I promise. Turn off the notifications on the phone, on watches, on wearables. Eliminate all the distractions. So have you ever, and I got to tell you, I'm in awe of people who do this, and I so desperately try to do it myself. Have you met with people, have you had coffee with people where they make you feel like you're the only person in the world? I love those people. I just like, oh my God, I just want to, right? They're the only I want to hear what they're up to. I want to know what they're up to. I want to know how I can help them. That's a quality investment. That is listening louder. That is engaging in a meaningful way that strengthens the relationship. I've always said in every interaction, you have one of two directions you're going to go. In every interaction, you're either going to enhance your reputation, your credibility, and the relationship, or you're going to dilute it. So if you're reaching out to people with, hey, that might be a very short conversation. Conversely, I read this and I'm wondering, how are you thinking about it? Let's connect for a cup of coffee. Meet me for a drink after work. If you don't drink Diet Coke or ginger ale. I don't care. It's about the connection. It's about strengthening. I need you to think of relationships and the connective tissue between them as muscle fibers. Are you working those muscle fibers to strengthen these relationships? Because nobody else tells you this. You need fewer relationships, but you need deeper. You need more meaningful. You need stronger relationships. We all do. In a world where cold outreach is dying, how many spam emails do you get a day? If I don't know you and you call me, I am not picking it up. So in a world where everybody's talking about mass everything, I am the anti-mass. It's fewer, deeper, more meaningful, more authentic. Strengthen the muscles between those relationships. And you cannot do that with 5,000 people. So inner circle is all about fewer, more intimate, but more genuine, more authentic, more trust-centered relationships. If you just joined us, I'm talking about the 5 best practices to become a member of someone else's inner circle. 1, build trust, demonstrated trust through consistency. 2, offer material value, exponential value without expectations. 3, foster authentic connections, the realness factor. 4, intentionally, proactively invest in the relationship, in deepening, in strengthening the relationship. 5, can't talk about it. You got to demonstrate alignment and reciprocity. Now, I got to tell you, I was recently on a webinar and an executive who was there had this visceral reaction of, it sounds incredibly manipulative, and I'm sorry, but I can't control how you feel. And you're not listening to me. You don't know anything about me. You haven't read an ounce of my work if you believe what I'm trying to teach is anything other than authentic and value-based and reciprocal. There's some fundamental laws in business relationships, and I've been a student of it. You may have a PhD, but I've been a student of business relationships for 2 decades. And I can tell you there are 3 fundamental laws in business relationships. Number 1 is gratitude. Somebody does something for us, you better say thank you. Number 2 is reciprocity. Somebody does something for us. I'm telling you, it's human nature for most of us to feel this sense of obligation of we need to do something in return. We need to reciprocate in return. If people that you're investing in are not saying thank you or they're not reciprocating, this might be a good time for you to ask why. Number 3 is pay it forward. I coach you. I mentor you. I add value to you. Ideally, you're doing the same for other people. So when you demonstrate alignment and reciprocity, not talk about it, yup, demonstrate it. What you do is you ensure the goals, values, and the vision is aligned with theirs. So I'm talking about you joining somebody else's inner circle. You have a cup of coffee meeting. They tell you their aspirations, their goals, what they're trying to accomplish. If you don't believe in those goals, if they're not aligned with who you are and what you're trying to do and what you bring, say so. And don't waste their time or yours. But if they're in fact things you believe in, if they're in fact things that you can support, if they're things that you're relevant to, if there are aspirations you can bolster their success, also say so, and then share some of your goals and what you value and your vision. And ideally, you know this relationship. Talk about what you've experienced when they've been at their best. One of my favorite questions: what gives you wind in your sail? One of my favorite questions: what frustrates the heck out of you? What takes you entirely too long to accomplish? Tell me where you're stuck. because what I'm looking for is not just the transactional or the step or whatever's either bolsters them forward, right? Fuels them forward, but what frustrates them, where they're stuck, how is that something where we're aligned and I feel like I can add value? Well, I got to tell you, one of my favorite TV shows is Shark Tank. And not only just I love the entrepreneurial DNA and the people, how they show up with their pitches. And if you look at the sharks, I don't know if you've seen this or not, several of them, I think Mark Cuban does this a lot, that says, listen, I either don't know much about this space, or I'm not excited about this space, or I don't believe in this space. So I don't think I can help you. For that reason, I'm out. Be that transparent. Be that aligned with the person you believe you can materially help. So when you demonstrate, when you show mutual investment, when you equally contribute to the relationship success, the other person feels it. They feel like they're better off because you're in that inner circle with them. And they genuinely feel that they're better off. I love hearing people say, I couldn't have done this without you. We couldn't have reached this milestone without you. We couldn't get to this outcome or this next step or this next hurdle without you. Those are 5 best practices. Again, a quick recap. Build trust through consistency, offer value without expectation, foster authentic connections, invest materially, proactively in the relationship, demonstrate alignment and reciprocity. When you do that, it is not a guarantee that you're going to get invited into somebody's inner circle. You're just positioning yourself as a candidate that would be very viable. So if you listen to my definition of an inner circle, a curated group of high valued relationships, what makes them high value is that they've demonstrated these things over the last 10, 15, 20 years. And what do they do when they're in that inner circle? They inspire, they challenge, they elevate, and they amplify. Ideally, they've demonstrated having done some of those things in the past. Are you inspiring other people? Are you challenging them? Are you elevating them? Are you amplifying their personal and professional growth? Some of you know I'm a voracious leader, a reader. Dad drove into me. Leaders are readers and readers are leaders. I love reading. I read a lot of different kinds of things. I often send them out to people. Read this and I thought of you. This reminds me of our last conversation of what we talked about. Here's something that I thought might be of value to you. Here's something you said in a previous meeting that came across my radar. Here's an event that I think you should attend. When you inspire, challenge, elevate, amplify. Inspire, challenge, elevate, amplify their personal and professional growth, you get noticed. You separate yourself from everybody else. So now what you have to do is there's mutual trust, there's measurable or outcome-based collaboration, and there's shared success. Most people in your inner circle have tasted, have experienced some success, especially if they're older, especially if they're in the fall or winter of their careers. They really are searching for significance. They really are searching how they can matter in the work and lives of others. Those people are not going to put themselves first. They're going to put you first. They're going to want to see you succeed. Surround yourself with those people. Those are the people you want to consider for that inner circle. But I cannot emphasize this enough. An inner circle is not 500 people. An inner circle is maybe 5 people. As such, that becomes a really high valued real estate. That table, that intimate dinner table, is a pretty expensive real estate. And you don't want to make that decision carelessly. And by the way, if you want to become a member of someone else's inner circle, You have to not just hear these 5 best practices, but you have to internalize them, and you have to live them, and you have to do it on a consistent basis, and they have to be felt. And you cannot do these things for 20, 30, 50 people. Ideally, this is who you become. You build trust through consistency in how you show up. You offer value without any expectations. You foster authentic connections. You invest proactively, materially in those relationships, and you demonstrate alignment and reciprocity. Ideally, that's who you become. I'm just telling you, I've studied this for a number of years. You cannot invest in everybody equally. We all have a certain amount of bandwidth. And if you can't invest in everybody equally, how will you then prioritize who you invest in? There has to be alignment between their aspirations and your capabilities, competencies. What are you willing and what are you able to do to inspire, challenge, elevate, amplify their personal and professional growth? That's what an inner circle is all about. So if you missed it, if you joined us late, I would encourage you to go back and listen. A couple reminders. Next episode, episode 5, rules of engagement. Episode 5, rules of engagement. If you're in someone's inner circle, what are the rules of engagement? And after that, I'm going to start inviting some guests to come join us, and I'm going to ask them a whole bunch of questions. You're not going to want to miss it. So mark your calendar, noon Eastern, every Tuesday is a new episode of Inner Circle live stream podcast. I do this live on LinkedIn, on X, on YouTube. We repurpose it for a podcast and put it quickly, post it up wherever you consume podcasts. We're just getting started, fresh off the new year. I would encourage you, if you haven't, go back and listen to the previous episodes. Episode 1, I defined what an inner circle is. Episode 2, we jumped into attributes. I gave you, in essence, a scorecard of how do you measure? How do you look for? What are you looking for? Episode 3, 10 steps to creating your own inner circle. And in this episode 4, I gave you 5 best practices to becoming a member of someone's inner circle. So my name is David Noor. I'm author of 12 books on business relationships. The next one is called Inner Circle. I hope you'll come join us every week, Tuesdays, noon Eastern. Forum.avneer.com is our online community. Come join us there. That's it. I hope this has been invaluable to you. Thanks for joining. We'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.